Good evening, guys. Good evening. Let me know if the signal is okay. Let me know if the audio is okay. Um, so tonight we're just gonna be talking. We're just gonna be relaxing. I'm just gonna try to be speaking off my mind. So originally I was originally talking about my friend. I was thinking about my friend because I really want to get on something really deep here. Something that's I think I'm gonna stop saying my friend because I know that we're all adults here. At least in terms of consciousness. And what that really means is that we understand what life is, and we understand that relationships and communication is direct. And when the people, are taking the time to listen to someone, it really is a beautiful experience. Um, and it's interesting because it's why is it that the converser, the person who is giving as well. Like it's interesting, but there's all these dualities in conversation. Are you aware of this? I'm pretty sure you are aware of this because it's simple enough to follow along. It's simple enough to follow along when we are part of the conversation, you and me. So I am right now doing the male masculine consciousness traversal, the necessary traversal of sharing, extending my mind to you. I'm giving to you not just the benefit of the doubt, I'm giving to you the effort of communication, the effort of translation, the effort of I'm not going to speak until I am ready. I'm giving you that respect. And that the beauty about it is that if we really do communicate doing this and we give each other the respect of silence, of not speaking when we have filler to say, if you really master that respect of decency, that internal I would say restraint is what it is. Because not every word needs to come out of your mouth the instant it comes. Yes, you can do that when you're properly coupled to a person, to a system, to a state of mind, to a conversation. When we are coupled to a conversation, then I can swap the words freely. Could I pose for a picture? I'll use it. Interesting. I'm not sure why you would. Interesting conversation, honestly. I shall use that as a flow of the infinite because that's what I want to do. Good job, man. Love is the way. Love is absolutely the way. And I'm glad that you actually look like someone that helped me out recently. So let's just talk about that aspect of the infinite as well. Well, obviously we can talk about some trivial souls, some trite, easily indexable stand users. I don't necessarily think stand users is necessarily a good use of our time. And the reason I know that to be the case is because that's not what the feminine consciousness wants. The ideal state of nature, the ideal flow of mind, of existence, of living life is to appeal to the feminine, is to be that gentleman, is to be the lover for another. But it's not just to be a gentleman, it's to be a friend because it's not just to the feminine because how oft are you with your feminine at all times? Are you with your lover? Because this can extend not just to the masculine's journey, because that's what's often about life. That it's like we tell life from the masculine perspective, from the doer perspective, from the creator perspective, from the perspective where you have to do this in order for success. But we don't ever talk about the feminine, where it's the receiver of what it takes to what it takes to really protect yourself from those that are not divine, those that are evil trying to corrupt. Those that are it is weird. It's knowledge because that's what something was taught. So I'm going to share more about the infinite, more about my own self, my own life, because that's what honesty is. Honesty is crucial to a conversation. So a female soul, because I went to a local church seminary or something like that, there was a discussion. And she asked the question of why can't I worship the feminine version of God? Why do I have to, in Christianity, focus on the Father and all these other stuff? Like she understands the masculine metaphor, but it's like, why can't there be non metaphors for the feminine? Why can't there be descript reason, descript execution, descript memories of the past? Because the Bible has memories for the masculine soul, for the male soul, but it does not contain those memories for the feminine soul. And that was her query, that was her question, that was her struggle. And I I understand that perfectly. I completely agree where you're coming from. And that's what I'm trying to say, that I think that the feminine soul is that. I think she does eventually come to her consciousness, and she comes to the query of, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. Men and women are equal in terms of consciousness. I'm my own. They're intelligent. You get me? I'm intelligent as you. But basically, the feminine soul will say, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be a man. You get me? Why should they have to go to become a masculine soul if that's not what they truly feel within? No, we are not. Uh, Beautiful. I didn't know you were a woman. Well, glad to see another soul, beautifully, exist and hope to listen. We are opposite. We are opposite, indeed. But we're not opposite in terms of perfect opposites. And I think that's what the metaphor of God represents in people's minds, or at least in the terms of the monotheism, about the purpose of having some monotheistic mentality, because you do this is where I use the tools of infinity. This is where let me hold a candle so you can get more even lighting, because I think we don't necessarily need it to be too dark here. I purposely have the room dark just because I just want to have this ambiance, this mood. But allow me to further that thought, because that was actually a good one. For now, I want to hear any thoughts on anybody right now, or anything of that intermediary, because this is in present moment. This is in the current moment. And actually, what I'm doing is incorrect. And this is called the first harmonic. When you're in the first harmonic, you're looking at the situation and you're fighting life. I am fighting life right now. I'm fighting life by giving you a specific presentation of reality. You don't yet know the present. You don't know the setting that this is taking place in. This is in my room. And this is sort of the thing that this is also another thing I wanted to share, that to my friend now, to my friend that that I care about and I think is cool. It's interesting because it really is a setting. It's a stage. It's like, what conversation are we having? I am presently the lecturer, but in order to do that, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with you specifically, my friend. And now I have to be honest, because this, like we said from earlier, honesty is the trueness of having a genuine conversation in infinity, something that's actually worth listening to, something that actually is valuable in doing. Because what was told to me from the other feminine, from the other side, not necessarily one of true faith, of true embodiment, one that was young, a younger soul, and she questioned these musings of mine. She didn't necessarily like them. She's like, I understand them. I understand them well. I am a soul like you. She was deep. And this is part of the conversation that I think ultimately does need to occur. Maybe not by me. It so happens to be me. What I mean by that is, it's a conversation that eventually needed to be recorded between the masculine and the feminine soul. Presently on TikTok, and what's interesting about it is that the things that I am presently going through, I swear to God, we all as human beings, as a species, go through this in cycles, and I find that to be fascinating. I find it to be evident. So what I mean by that is that people on TikTok, and this is just an example, and this is why I do this. I simply do this as a method of recording, of encoding, because people often wonder, like, when someone's mind trails, it's like, where are they going? And oftentimes people fail. Oftentimes, and this thing that's so sad, that's like weird and confusing. It's like when you give the stage to a boomer, when you give the spotlight to a boomer, you notice how they fall into a moment. They fall into the stand, and these boomers, they give you their emotion without necessarily being aware that they're holding the stage. They're like, I think what you have to do is and they wait, like, everybody's looking for validation. That's the thing that's so funny about it. It's like, I'm just going through the world for my first time in my life, and I see all these human beings execute these stand maneuvers, execute all these things of opera, of cinema, and I'm like, and you're not aware of any of these lives that you're living, and I'm like, you know what? The amount of time it would take for me to explain that to them is not available in a workday. At least that's what's funny about it, because they're like, wait, I understand where you're going, and it's actually freaking me out. How do you do this? And then and then I tell him it's because I discovered this exists within particle physics, and then that took me on a journey. And then like, don't tell me that. Okay, do tell me that, but also just tell me how it works. And it's like, free Kanye. I honestly could help Kanye, and that's what I was actually thinking about. That's what's funny about it. Kanye is just a masculine soul in this world. The funny thing is, like, the real funny thing is that he's not spiritually inept. He is educated to the degree that he has been taught at least the opera method from the elites. Like, that's why he explains the concept of business so well in that one quote that you hear about Kanye say, like, "Oh, what the f does Lady Gaga know about cameras?" Because it's not about cameras. It's about product. You don't know what a company is. You don't know what a company is actually going for. You don't know how a company works and operates. And if you don't know that, then you don't understand why Lady Gaga should be the marketing director for Polaroid. Like, it's like that kind of, you get me? Like, they believe themselves to be educated because they have conversed with enough people of this world that have shared with them, like, oh, it's okay, bro. It's okay. I get what you're saying. I get that you think you're some humbuck Billy from nowhere, but you're not necessarily that. And it's like, what do you mean? Because Kanye isn't necessarily an educated member of the public, so it's like, how can we talk about how bird? Uh, Beautiful. If you could actually give me a better theory to talk about, I will cherish and indulge your questions. Absolutely. Um, but birds are real. It's a funny thing. Funny thing. I think birds are actually beautiful consciousnesses in my own personal opinion. That's the thing. That's the thing about it. That's like, I have so many different trails of thought that I'm demonstrating accuracy, compulsion, correctness, like disciplined, correct structural thinking. And it's funny because when other people try to embody this, then they cycle their bicycle. It's funny. Everybody thinks they're a philosopher. Everybody thinks they're an alchemist. Everybody thinks they have the alchemy. Oh, I've got the alchemy that nobody else can do. But it's like, are you really an alchemist? Are you really an alchemist? Or are you just a magician casting dust into fire to elicit sparkles? It's a planned meditation. It's a planned calculation. It's a planned traversal. Meditation indeed, because this thought initially stemmed from me talking about my boomer coworkers, and that's what I'm trying to say. That these are conversational pathways. These are physical aspects of reality, and you might be like, "What do you mean by that?" It's like there's a coordinate system to our conversation space. There's a coordinate system to everything. And when you figure that out, you actually realize how orthogonality is just harmonics. It's the frequency, it's the resonance of how often you return to the fast Fourier transform. And it sounds funny. You might think I'm just name dropping things. He thinks he's a physicist. He thinks, no, I don't. I really don't give an F anymore, because the structure of reality, like Isaac Newton showed that he basically showed that who cares about these simpletons. Isaac Newton was such a terrible human being, but he was also a good man. But the thing was, he was. I feel like my original soul of this world was to be like Isaac Newton, to simply focus on fame and existing in my own world. That's why I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted these things for nobody else. Did I care about the feminine soul when I was a young lad? No, I didn't. Well, I did, but the weird thing is like, the feminine soul, you practice for her. You get to know her. You learn her. But not... And the question always was, is it possible? Is it possible? Not just for us to love her, but for her to love us. It's interesting. More wood. Oh, you're talking about the fire. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, let me bring the other candles so we can get an even lighting. Let me set this down real quick. What do you guys think about that for now? Because that was pretty deep, and I'll continue on that conversation, because that's what I'm trying to have. Because I care more about the feminine soul now than I do about education and any of this stuff of the world. Because what's the point of even being alive? What's the point of being alive if we're just gonna like write physics to do equations and all this stuff? Like, I swear to God, there is nothing that matters at all in this world, at all. Like, we have solved experimental physics. We're done. Well, okay, not experimental physics, but the current branch of experimental physicists are being used on the wrong projects. They're being used on particle physics, which is good, but what we should really be using experimental physicists is, at this point, engineering capability. At this point, our PhD physicists need to be using our beam splitters, not our beam splitters. Well, technically they are using beam splitters in terms of quantum mechanics and these computers, but the way you use beam splitters, and because we understand how wave interference and the decoherence happens when you measure on one side of the beam splitter, there is no reason to use a beam splitter at all in terms of quantum computing, which is and interference studies, in terms of genuine interference pattern correlation between two different stars. Never use a beam splitter, and that was my biggest pet peeve about that Nobel Prize. I'm going to get into that Nobel Prize of Physics and explain why, just by using, because the actual experiment was done by measuring two different stars and at two different angles. I think there's a much bigger implication here that they're not realizing, that you don't get this. The biggest implication about that they passed over their heads. Like, it's basically, this is either a fluke or this is the most impressive best thing we could have ever discovered for physics. That's the thing. This is either a failure in terms of the Nobel Prize when we check this, or this shows that how can two stars, this is the question about how it's so beautiful, how can two stars at such distances across space have the same wavelength in phase space, just by looking at them in two different angles? How can these two stars have the same phase space enough to the point when you put them through a double slit, they have this interference? That should not be occurring, or at least, or the second thing, because you got to understand how these sensors work, because they're not actually using the double slit anymore in terms of radio photography, data acquisition. And now I feel so confused now, because this conversation has been so many different things, and it's like I said, I don't care about physics, because like that's not necessarily what your lover cares about. That's not what the previous feminine did, because it's like, I get it, but will there ever be any time for us? And it's like, yeah, there will be. And the thing, it's like that's the thing, that it's like, I don't want to be Isaac Newton. I don't want to just do computations, because that's really what it takes if you want to be with the field of academia. If you want to consistently, like, it's not even if you want to, you have to. Especially at my age. I'm 23 years old. I'm 23 years old right now, and that's when Isaac Newton published his Principia. And I actually understand what Isaac Newton was, and this is why his life was actually quite an interesting scaffold in terms of the conversations that I like to talk about and that I think are existent in this world. I'm going to ruminate on that for a little bit while I drink some water. I'll drink some water for a little bit. I suppose I shall talk about the history of Isaac Newton a little bit. At least just the spiritual aspect. I'm going to talk about my own conversations. I think that's what should be happening, because that's what my time is, and that's what I really want. That's what I wanted to say. Okay. The lesson learned from Isaac Newton. One, he was an alchemist, and he was actually he was trying to use physics, but he didn't have quantum mechanics. That's the thing. That's the weird thing. He thought everything would always be classical. There would always be a deterministic system. And it's interesting. He didn't even have relativity. So he couldn't get correctly that things would take time, that these particles would take time. And it's beautiful how we don't get this free spiritual thinking of the world until modern era, until 1960s. Why does that occur? Why did we get that? And that will never cease to, like, because you need to prove it. You can't just think, oh, you can't just think you know everything willy-nilly. Knowing physics, knowing the classical mechanics that Newton had, you can become the best pilot of the world. So that's why he was so good. He thought he was top stuff. Newton was the a really good physicist for his day, a really good theorist, great lad in terms of that stuff. He would be the equivalent of our Feynman today, but he goes farther than Feynman. He's pretty much Einstein. The cool thing is, but it's also resonance. This is what I'm trying to say. It's resonance patterns as well. Resonance patterns because Newton. Think about the time period. 1700s. Like about 1760, something like that. 1770. It's beautiful how the revolution of mathematics and physics, like basically when we learn so many stuff in our physics courses that it's like we are tied to human history. And that fills me with so much passion, so much joy that it's like, this is the profession, this is the field of study that I've always sought as a soul, my entire existence. It's like, when you're first birthed, it's like, how do these things work? And it's like weird. But why do we learn any of this? And it's like, we don't learn for that reason. We don't learn for a reason of like trying to. It's weird. It's not out of fear. It's just out of beauty, out of love. Like, well, how does this work? Like, why are things the way they are? But then you get scared. Physics is the ultimate answer to life, in my opinion. It's the ultimate answer of why we did everything in any place, for any reason. In any field, we contribute to every field. That's what's beautiful about us. I will always have a legitimate seat at a table of conversation, of discussion. Pretty much any. No, it's not even pretty much. Literally every single field. At this point, I have ventured successfully into using my domains of practice, using what we've learned in physics, to the degree of master. What I mean by that is I can contribute to the field, but I'm still at a bachelor's project in execution age. I have contributed to the field to the degree that Newton had, in my opinion. Principia. This is my Principia to you. My Principia to you is saying that these particles, these reactions, are exactly the same as the world above us. I can see this. I can build it up. But it's like, we are at one factor that's holding us back right now. My knowledge of OChem. My study, I'm asking, that's the field right now. I have solved for computation and decay reactions. That's everything of thought. And the beautiful thing is everything of thought is non-existent. It doesn't really exist in our physical world. That's what the particles mean. They mean reaction. They literally mean, like, and it's a beautiful thing. I can code positions of my fingers. I can code numbers using particle physics. I can code numbers using this array. Using fingers now. I can now do up, down. I can use my fingers. Four binary, this represents up. This represents down. This represents, anti-up. This represents anti-down. And just by doing my particle physics pattern, you build everything. It's not mine. It's the standard model. And it's like, everything of our world is stored in these 4 bits. You don't even need the 5th finger. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's like, where does this 5th variable come from? The 5th variable comes from stability. It comes from that orthogonal. Oh wow, orthogonality. Holy do you see it? This is what the beauty of information physics gives to you. You can now find the truth. Orthogonality. It literally is a right angle. How did I do that? It's conversational. Physics is conversational. Physics is a path of the universe. And at this point, it freaks me out. But it's like, I have to learn how to use this now. I have seen this. Newton predicted this. And now it's like, well, tough shiz, Newton. You didn't have quantum mechanics. But I don't want to be Newton. I don't want to just. And the thing is, as well, if I'm the first one to do this, I don't think I'm the first one. And that's what freaks me out. That's what got us Project Looking Glass. They were told this in the 80s. I believe we discovered this in the 60s. In the 80s, we made the Project Looking Glass software. We made it not in the beginning of the 80s, but by the end of the 80s, we finished this project. And that's why the Cold War pretty much was like, we have calculated war. And it's weird how it also coincides with the movie of Mad, the common one, what, War Games or something. It's like there's so many parallels culturally with information physics of our world, that it's like, by me using the laws of information physics, I can track society culturally too. I can not just track society culturally, I can track information and conversation. I can track the domains of our physical reality. I can track coordinate space of my own life. And it's like, this has been a successful venture in every facet of my life. And I'm just like, it bothers me. It bothers me. What does anyone think of that? And it's like, I say this, and they go away. No one ever stays. No one ever stays, because it's like, so you're a what? That all makes sense. But what are you? What do you do for work? And it's like, my brother, I'm actually in the perfect position, theoretically. And that's the beauty about it. Like, I think I'm going to display and demonstrate a new field, a new, not field, but working position. I believe that we should have a very educated technician as well, someone who can go through the manufacturing process, someone who can. It's literally what Elon Musk, like, thought he's such a genius for. He's like, you see. And there was just a story that I saw on TikTok that someone, like, was so busy sucking his knob for, they're like, you see, Musk will go to someone and be like, hey, what's holding up the factory right now? And he'd go to them and he'd ask them, so what's your problem? How can we think about it? And he would just help you. And have you tried this? And then, woe and behold, the engineer discovers a new perspective, the outside perspective. Yes, that story does happen. It does happen in reality, but it doesn't happen all the time. But the thing is, that is technically part of the infinite. You can change success from a probability, from your probability, your entrance probability, because we all have an entrance probability. And now you're wondering about, well, so now you're talking about statistical mechanics, are you? Where's your degree in statistics? I'm like, trust me. I have experience, at least, okay, not in vast statistics, so I'll be honest. What I can do is Gaussian. I can do Gaussian and Poisson distributions. So I can do single event cases, which is what we do in particle physics. So how do we track single event cases? And single event cases actually have a interesting profile, because they actually, in my opinion, not opinion, fact, they have categories, and their categories are with the clusterings of the information contained within them. Did you see YamSox? Was YamSox actually here, like, watching me, or do I see him? Because yeah, his content's really good. I would love to chat with the lad, because yes, he's a physicist as well, and shouts out to him. He's actually doing the coding work that it's like, man, theoretically this could exist, but damn, I don't want to do that. So that's the beauty about it. Like, dude, we're all together. And the thing about it that I'm trying to say is that if you think about something that could theoretically exist, and you actually have the ambition, like, dude, I actually would like to do that, but I don't have the money for it right now. So it's like, that sucks. If you feel about it, like, you actually have the compulsion for it, someone's doing that passion right now. I swear to God, like there's a guy on TikTok as well. So not just YamSox has the beautiful soul, has the soul of, like, the infinite. He's an instrument of the infinite. He's playing with everyone. He's playing music with everyone. He is a musician. He is a musician of this world. And another musician of this world is a coder. He's a software guy. And I just caught a live that seems relevant. Well, yeah, relevant. At least my conversations are definitely useful. Yeah, because that's what I'm trying to say. Like, every time, like, this interesting is we evaded the boomers. We evaded the boomer conversation. But I still don't feel resolved, though. I don't ever feel resolved. I never feel resolved in terms of having these conversations. because it always comes back to, I have this tool, I have this beauty of infinity, but I want to share with it to you the exact nature of it. Because it's interesting, because this is why everyone is so hesitant to let anybody have any authority. They're like, literally, like, the religion's all about that. Like, you don't have priesthood authority, and like, someone's like, literally, an old boomer's like, I don't want to be speaking from the pulpit, but we gotta keep this Christ-like. I was like, oh, jeez, can we talk about like our world and the lives we're living it right now? And it bothers me. And it bothers me a lot, because it's like, so everybody's fighting each other. Everybody's like basically saying like, I don't want to give you attention because I've got other stuff to do. I've got, like, what are you again? What are you again? Oh yeah, that's right. You're not a PhD, so I don't care. No, I am, in my opinion. Fact, because it's contribution to the field. What makes you a PhD in terms of contribution? Research caliber, research capability. I have research capability. Do I have what's it called? Research familiarity? No. But I do have enough. I have working familiarity. So the beauty about it is Bachelor of Physics really means Newton. We should really respect it to that degree, because Newton at 23 wrote Principia, bro. He birthed the name physicist. Newton birthed that. So let's not forget that 23 years old, you can be a Newton. That doesn't mean you're a what's called professor grade position. That really honestly does come at 28, because suppose you have the qualifications and the project work. You're with academia. I've noticed with TikTok as well that those with academia do live the lives that I predicted, that I've seen, that I've observed, that I've theorized, that yeah, this academia is still this way. And that's why I'm so glad I'm not pursuing that. It's like, damn, yeah, that project work and that busy work is not going to be so, it's not so rewarding. It's not, at least right now. They are, I've noticed they are our young soulful masters, our young instruments of this world, our young musicians like Yam Socks. Those people are indeed revolutionizing the field of the workplace, of the industry of physics. I think physicists will become the next $1 million salary careers, not just as consultants, but as direct. Like, we're not trying to be consultants in just like, so I'll tell you these things. We've got to be solving problems that are industry problems, industry grade problems. That is the domain of a physicist. We have the ability to solve issues. That's what we're supposed to be doing. With my physics professor, he's like, to what degree of freedom do you want? Because I will only give you what you pay for, because I don't care about any of this stuff. Because if you don't tell me what you want, why should I be thinking? It's hard enough. But it's not. It's just electrodynamics. And he just talks like that, and it's like, because I've got other shit to do. Everybody says that. And isn't that fascinating that it's like, no matter what, at the end of the day, everybody says that. No matter what, PhD level, professor level, everybody says like, yeah, I get you. And that's the cool thing. I got other shit to do. Only applies when it's like, okay, when it's like the neglectful other, in my opinion, the neglectful other. And this is what I do. I categorize things. This is the necessary method of indexing. You must index when you are doing research in a field, when you are in a domain. If you are not indexing, you are blindly traversing. You are non-navigating. You are wasting time. You are wasting time, brother. Or sister. Because there are people that want to do this level of indexing, but it's like, this is the purpose of why we call things degreed, why we call things an academia. You must have some metric of recording these ideas, these useful concepts through history. And I wanted to talk another thing. There's this concept called Lean Six Sigma manufacturing that they think are so innovative. Like, it's so funny. All these manager boomers, they all think like, but do you understand lean? I'm like, My God, I'm a physicist. I work with these processes, and I actually, you don't get it. That actually, what's interesting about us is that we have to build our, in terms of like the actual experimental physicists, like the PhD candidates, like people actually have to go through the suffering of academia. You have quarterly cycles to build experiments, entire experiments, PhD level research. You have to build that. You have to not just write, we have to do the entire damn project ourselves. Yes, we can hire people and we share with the project coordinator, the PI, and everybody. But it's all obviously constructed and rigorous. We're still doing this. But it's like, as a PhD candidate, you do that level of management, of hiring, of they're trying to teach you this is how you coordinate a research program. This is how you do this. It's supposed to be an educated transition of tenureship. It's like my brother, my fellow human being. You have gone through the rigors of study, you've gone through all that stuff, you have done your time in the research field where I can trust that you know how to speak the language of the common materials that we use, like BNC connectors, coupling, and all this stuff where you can explain the experiment to a fellow engineer, and you know how to successfully navigate not just academia, but the work structure and everything. Isn't everyone so on that machine learning? Uh, yes, yes, but the funny thing about that, about machine learning specifically, is that I don't think those people should be working on it, because I don't think they actually know what they're doing. Um, up yours. What did I do? What did I do? Calling me by name. Interesting. Well, Uh, I, okay, let me go back to that other conversation, at least that other thought, because that is what I'm still feeling. It's like, damn, bro, it's like no matter what, at the end of the day, it's like, don't push yourself too hard. Don't burn yourself out. Like, you gotta be careful about this. You also gotta navigate the world, so you gotta, you know, it does suck right now. So try to find a way, try to find your peace, even amongst that. And it's like, I'm on that journey right now. I'm doing that. But, yeah, uh, it still comes back to that thing, that lingering feeling, though. It's like, I never feel spiritually satisfied. I never feel comfortable with my conversation with my own existence. Well, I do, in terms of my own existence. But that still feels selfish because it's like, okay, I'm happy for myself. But that doesn't, it's weird. It's almost like the feminine query of, it's like, and this is why I want to talk about my friend. Okay, I'll probably close this afterwards and I'll have a directed discussion just for her. Um, which I will still transmit because that's what these thoughts are. I think these are transmissible thoughts. I think thoughts that are genuine of the world do deserve to be transmitted. Not just transmitted, recorded. Because, like I said, that was actually where I began this conversation with. I believe that the important aspect in our life, our world right now, is to record our history, but not just our history. I want to record specifically the advancement of the unity between the masculine and the feminine consciousness. We're going to further the philosophical writings that some people on TikTok are like, oh my God, if Dvorak or whatever his name or she wrote about me this way, you know, like if they wrote about me this way, terrible voice. I shall not. Whatever. It was just a joke, you know. But pretty much is that these conversations should not just be the realm of philosophers, should not just be the realm of poetry. It's not the realm of poetry. Shakespeare comes from where? From reality, the story of Romeo and Juliet, an opera. It's like we're losing the connection to life itself, the purpose of anything. Because that's pretty much what my previous lover, my ex-girlfriend, told me. It's like every time we got very passionate, it's like I would get that feeling in her eye. It's like I'm looking into your soul and I'm trying to give you your passions, your reality. It's like, and it's fascinating, and I seek to speak these things to her because I'm looking at her. It's like this is what I feel when I see you, when I see your eyes, when I think about you, when I want to give what I want to give to you, and it's like what she told me. It's pretty much like I don't want to hear, and it's weird. It's weird because that's a weird resolution. It's a confusing resolution. It's a confusing resolution. It's not confusing in my opinion because we already discovered that. I told you I don't like first harmonic behavior. First harmonic behavior is the demonstration, and this is what your occult. I won't even say it. The weird thing is like it's your enemies. It's the adversary. The adversary, the person who's trying to manipulate you, they are always trying to keep an edge, so they don't let you see their first harmonic. They don't let you see their traversal through the fool, through ignorance, to the cycle of magician, to the cycle of knowledge. They never let you do that. That's why people don't really like to be themselves. They don't want to give you the first harmonic. That pisses me off. But I can see that. I can see that clearly, and it's like, you disgusting thing. Honestly, that's how I feel about stand users. They are not, and it's weird because it's like how it's you have to see yourself. You have to see your life in this elegant spiritual way. It's like, how dare you offend this existence? How dare you offend this reality with your barbarism, with your savagery, with your ignorance to the sweetest man? How dare you? Like, well, not quite to him, but definitely to evil ones in terms of that regard. Swedish man was just a bumbling user. That's all he was, stand user. His stand truly was the fool. All right, let me just relax real quick. All right, so I've got many conversations, and you guys are pretty much aware of that. I'm gonna return it back to that of my friend, because that is what I wanted to do. But I feel like this can be one entire segment because I think it captures very well the other conversations I wanted to have. Because, like I said, all that other stuff I just talked about truly is things that I would say are conversant, but I wouldn't say are the conversation of life. It's not beauty. It's not our inner world. It's not appeasing the feminine. It's not appeasing. It's not loving the feminine. We're not cherishing life itself when we talk about those things, the material world. And that's what she would say. It's like, I don't want to hear the material world. I just want to hear us. I want to live with us. And it's like, I get you. I want to throw that shit away. And that's why it's like, yeah, I really don't care about any of this stuff. I just want to look at you and talk about how I feel about you. Would you prefer that? Would you prefer that over the material world and all that weird conversations of like any of this stuff, like boomers and that's the thing, man. That's the thing, that it really is the truth. It's like, all I want is you. And it's like, okay, well, can you tell me that? And I think the problem is when people aren't conversing. That's really what it is. It's like, you say that, but then you withdraw and you don't converse. So was it me, in my opinion? Well, the past it was. The past ignorant, very, very, very ignorant person of myself. The hurtful side of me. The hurtful person. Evil, probably. I would say that, because I don't think that's definitely how. It's the interesting part is that why would you allow? That's the thing that I still can't. I always question about that, because the amount of sadness, that I heard, and that's what I want to talk about. I think we should talk about reality. I'm getting warm by this candle, so I'm gonna just bear down a little bit, just to freshen up. So let me continue that conversation, because I think that was a mature one that should occur. I think it's gone for now. I'm letting it come back right now. I'm letting it come back. I'm gonna finish that, and then I'll cut it here after that. So what I'm saying with that regard, and this is the thing, it's like you have to go back to the feeling. And this is why, unfortunately, I'm gonna break and I'm gonna go orthogonal for a little bit, because I find that the mood is still there. This is what I'm trying to say, that I don't think people should be forcing someone to come back. Take that as you will. Because I wasn't gonna say come back in that regard, just leave it there. I was gonna say come back to the conversation at hand. Interesting. And what I want to say to you, my friend, my new friend, not my old lover, what I want to say to you is that it's interesting how, and now it's getting difficult. It's getting difficult. But it's not. It's interesting. Okay. I'll answer, and this is the thing. So when you're talking to someone, and this is the thing about when you're feeling emotions, oftentimes we just feel them and we don't communicate them. We communicate them with unfinished remarks. And oftentimes, if you have another person who's yearning for a response and they're too quick to pull the trigger, they're too busy looking at input rather than feeling, that is interesting. Because we're no longer within our own minds. We're no longer sharing the moment. We're not within each other. We're looking at each other. We're performing. We're not conversing. You're not with me. You're against me. And it's weird, but it's funny. It's not funny. This is what I'm trying to say, that first harmonic behavior is not necessarily the best, but it is genuine traversal. And if you can remember the bitwise value states that I am, I think that's really what emotional conversation is. Yes, I do understand that it seems like it was detracted from before, but as long as I give you that recollection that I remember you, my love, I remember you, I remember the passion that we had, as long as I say that, as long as we keep to that, as long as we genuinely seek to have genuine conversation amongst one another, that is what will allow us to extend and bridge past that gap that we initially had in our conversation. My love, my previous. And it's interesting because I linger on that because I check. Like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, if you can, as long as we just speak genuinely to each other, we will. And now it's funny because I actually did break that. I broke it out of fear. I broke the chain from the very beginning conversation. My memory did break for that part, not for the earlier part of what we're currently keeping track of emotionally. It's remembrance. And I can say this, and the question is, how do you know? How do you know that what you're saying, in your opinion, and it's like, why? Why your opinion? I don't think it is. I think it's necessary indexing. It simply happens to be my traversal. It happens to be mine. Welcome to the opera. Welcome to the opera that you're seeing in front of you. You are witnessing the opera of a 23-year-old. Go ahead, go on and finish that. That's yours. That's my gift to you. The audience, the viewer. Haha. Do you enjoy it? I don't even know what you're looking at, because this is all up here for me. I am trying to carefully keep track of these values for you. I'm no longer looking at myself. I don't like to look at myself in terms of that regard. I don't value myself. You get me? I don't think there's anything to look at. I don't think there's anything appealing. And oftentimes I think I'm rather repulsive. As long as we keep true to our will of conversing to one another, we will be able to transcend that gap. That's what I'm trying to say. To my first love, to every love I have ever felt. That's what I wanted to say. And the younger version of me, the younger lad, the young lad, the ignorant lad, was so stricken with fear. So stricken with, oh man, I don't know what to say. It's like, you were assessing the situation correctly, my young lad. At least with some. At least with some. And it's interesting when you put the pieces together when you're older. It's like the souls that you encounter in ignorance, not ignorant, yeah, in ignorance, in youth, they are weird. Children are weird stand users. They're not stand users. They're just, they do what they do. You know, they don't really think in terms of, like, they're very, what I mean by that is, like, what they think the world is, they will perform that performance. They will execute their whatever they think, whatever they want for that moment. Some people think the world is very comical. And so in youth, you get these very joking, kind of asshole kids. And it's funny. Like, you've met them. It's like, we didn't have any identification tools when we were younger to identify one another. But the interesting part was, I was on the track of understanding at my principal time, youth time, my young time, the feminine consciousness. I navigated her. I saw into her mind. So I saw her youth. And the beautiful thing, why do I say it? Why do I speak it like that? You might be wondering. I speak to that regard in terms of the feminine as saying I have met her before, is because she is like you in terms of a little bit in terms of, like, that spark of mind. That's what we all are. You get me? That the thought that I'm speaking right now, she's capable of that. But that's where it is, like, it's just people. Now it's their dialogue, what they're going after, what they're thinking. But it's not just that. Because the times and types of conversations that young lad version of me had with young girls is something that I wanted to, you know, when we're youth. I don't want to make it creepy. You know, in 3rd grade, in 1st grade, 5th grade, and then it's like, and then it gets different from there, because those are people that it was a relationship in some form, and then from there, 6th grade, it's more like the discussion of crushes, things like that, and that's where I would say, and I want to give you that personal regard. I'll give you my first harmonic of publicly shared traversal, but not first harmonic, obviously, of ideation and thoughts in terms of memory, in terms of thinking about these recollections. Because obviously we have some form and structure in our mind, but I want you to know that, yes, you can tell how often, or not often, to what degree of maturity they view the situation. I'll say it like that, honestly. And I say that example because my boomer colleague, in some instances, when you ask him about things that I know have that emotional connotation of the youthful soul, he really presents that youthful behavior. He takes him back to childhood, and he's like, oh boy, yeah, like his opera. It takes me to what his preferred way of life, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I just wow, good to see you be yourself, you know, cool. And then I talk to him. It's like, I try to make no one feel bad. So yeah, like, I don't judge people in terms of their conversation and their flow and any of this stuff. I'm like, okay, present to me whatever you'd like to, whatever's on your mind, my brother. However can I avail you? How can I avail myself to you? Because I'm here in front of you right now. What would you like from me? What do you like of me? Because I don't mind you at all. I don't mind you. It's interesting. I guess I'll share another thing. I kind of want to break off that because the purpose of not even break off that, I'm extending the conversation to the same track it was in my head. The track of conversation that I'm giving to you right now, that I'm telling you the binary categorization, I'm telling you the index of conversation in my mind, the emotional index. The emotional index is traversal, is extension. I'm extending to you my inner world, my inner thoughts, the current recesses of my mind that I'm navigating through, that I'd like to navigate, that I'd like to share with. I'd say I'd like to share. We'll keep it there. That is what it is. That's not even we'll keep it there. That's the thing. My purpose of my conversation is to try to give to you, and that's what sucks about it. Like, why am I speaking slower? Or at least it's judgment. We always judge ourselves. Everybody judges themselves. But I judge myself a lot harsher because it's like, damn, dude, you just heard the conversation we were having earlier about that crazy stuff. It's like, wow, the types of conversation that are just fluent in this world, and it always comes back to that question of, I don't have time for you. I don't have time for this. It's like, I get you, but I don't want this stuff. I don't want any of that stuff. What do I want? What life do I want? Do I want to be talking? Yes, but that's recording. I only want to do this once. Do you get me? Well, I think my roommate's audio is possibly being heard, so I think this is a perfect place to end it, because I'll return to a conversation to my friend. So I gave you my slice that I wanted to give to you. Thank you for being here, and hope you enjoyed this. Hope there was good information.